Thank you very much, Julie. Welcome to everybody attending the 108th branch meeting of the double IRSM UAE branch. Thank you for attending. The agenda for this evening is a brief introduction and some branch updates, after which I will run a presentation on sustainable construction and the role of the HSE professional. I think sustainability is becoming more and more an important topic. I also see in my own environment that a lot of HSE professionals get involved in sustainability topics. So I thought this might be an interesting topic for all of you. And then we have a question and answer session, and then we close the meeting, I think at around 6:50, 10 to 7. We'll see how long it takes and how many questions we have. To start with the branch updates, I think a positive one, which I see month on month, is that we gain more followers compared to September. We have 88 new followers on our LinkedIn page. As of yesterday, we have over 1,300 followers, and I think that's very much, that's a good sign. I think that's a good sign that people are interested in double IRSM and following us and follow the news that we put in there. The second I want to mention is that the Risk Excellence Awards, the entries for 2023 are open. So if you want to nominate yourself, your organization, or a person, please go to the double IRSM website, follow the directions for the Risk Excellence Award, and do anyone a favor and nominate a person, a colleague, an organization, or yourself for the Risk Excellence Award. Training, we're nearing the end of the year, so there are some limited trainings available. We have a Managing Health and Safety Risk, the Essentials, which is scheduled for a couple of dates throughout the next coming months. So we have November 29 and 30, December 6 and December 7. We also have a Managing Risk, the Essentials, on January 31st and February 1 of next year. But please have a look at the double IRSM website for any upcoming training courses that will be posted on there. Branch meetings. We have today our UAE branch meeting. Tomorrow, India will have their branch meeting that will be on mental health. And then throughout the rest of the month, we have a meeting in Saudi Arabia on November 15th, in Qatar on November 22nd, India again on November 23rd, and then for the last month of the year, scheduled at the moment is the Oman branch meeting on December 6th, Pakistan meeting on December 7th, and we have our final branch meeting in the UAE for 2022 scheduled for December 14th. UK and Europe meetings. West Midlands have a branch meeting tomorrow on November 10 on business resilience and crisis management. London branch has their branch meeting on November 16, and then there is a Europe branch meeting on November 22nd with the topic critical thinking, decision making in times of crisis. For those who are interested in any of these branch meetings, feel free to go to the website to register yourself. You will receive a link so that you can attend the branch meeting. If you're not able to attend any of the branch meetings, but you're interested in the topic, previous branch webinars are available on YouTube and the IRSM website. So you can always have a look back whenever the time suits you. Professional development, applying for IRSM fellowship. On Tuesday, November 29, there is an information session to guide you through the requirements to apply for your fellowship. For this as well, please visit the website and register yourself to attend this online seminar. Membership benefits. As mentioned before and in previous months, we still have a 20% discount on the annual membership. Benefits are training and qualifications, access to parts of the member-only website of IRSM, competency framework. We have a Sentinel magazine, weekly newsletters, mentoring scheme, which I think is very interesting, at least, especially for those who just started in the health and safety role, in a health and safety role. So there are a lot of benefits of our membership. So if you still undecided to become member or not, maybe the 20% discount may pull you over the in our membership. So I'll like to welcome you as a member and look forward to your application. One other topic I think it's important to mention, IRSM is currently carrying out a survey. For that as well, visit the website. It will guide you through the survey, and you will support us tremendously if you take a few minutes of your time to fill in the survey so that we can improve our work for you as well, and can continuously improve our service to all of you. Branch future meetings. As I mentioned, our last meeting will be held on December 14th. We're finalizing the topic for that session. As soon as we have decided on the topic, I will get back to you. And then we start in 2023 with January 11th and February 8th as second branch meeting. We will continue to run the branch meetings every second Wednesday of the month. What I will try as well, especially now the latest restrictions in the UAE have been lifted with regards to COVID-19, is to get again face-to-face meetings organized. I personally always prefer the face-to-face because I think that's a better way to interact with each other. I do think that we will give a double option where we will have face-to-face sessions, but also have the virtual option available. As said, I will do my best to get that organized. I do realize that the two locations we used before, Etihad's head office and the location in Ibn Battuta, I'm not sure if they are still available, especially with Etihad, that they may be, precautious in getting a lot of external people on their site. But we will do our best to get the face-to-face sessions organized again. Being a member of IRSM and to improve our webinars as well. I still would like to reach out to all of you to suggest any topic that you would like to see presented during one of our branch meetings. At the moment, we have a small group of members that come up with topics, that suggest topics. But if there's any specific topic you would like to see on this forum, then please reach out to me or to any of the other committee members so we can schedule for that topic. Likewise, if there is anything you would like to share with our members, whether it's a best practice or whether it's an experience, whether it's a conference you recently attended, whether it's a training you would like to share your experience, do feel free to reach out to us. We can easily give you a couple of minutes. We don't need a long presentation, but we can provide you with some time to provide feedback and to share your experiences. And with that, we also hope that it becomes more interactive. So again, do reach out if you have any topic you would like us to discuss. That for the branch updates. I would like to go now to the presentation of this evening, which is on sustainable construction and the role of the HSE professional. As I mentioned, I see that sustainability is becoming a hot topic these days, gained momentum through various initiatives. And I think that sustainability will also change the role of us as HSE professional or safety professional, where we traditionally focus on health, safety, and environment. I see that, in the future, especially where you look at the E part, the environmental part, sustainability links closely to our profession. But it means that we cannot only rely on our experience in the health and safety field we have at the moment, but it also means that we need to develop ourselves and that we need to be at the forefront of sustainability. As I mentioned in the introduction, I see around me that sustainability and sustainability topics are often referred to HSE colleagues. In some organizations, I see that they have separate sustainability ambassadors, but more often, as I mentioned, I see it linked to the HSE profession. Sustainability is not only a topic that is high on the agenda in the construction industry. As I mentioned, I see it everywhere around me. I think the news is kind of overloaded with the topic. If you look at Europe at the moment, everybody is looking into sustainability, especially because prices increase and it becomes now more valuable as well, beneficial to start thinking more about sustainability. So it's not only high on the agenda in the construction industry. There is a momentum, and there's no single industry where sustainability is not on the agenda. In my own company, at Element, we are a testing, inspection, and certification company. We have set some ambitious targets with regards to sustainability. We want to be carbon neutral in 2030 for all our internal processes, and we even set a target of 2035 to be carbon neutral, including our suppliers. And I think that that's quite challenging. 2035 is almost around the corner, so a lot needs to be done. but I do see a major change in attitude towards sustainability, and for the better. Whilst sustainability not only focus on the construction industry, I think it needs to be mentioned that the construction sector accounts for a considerable share of the global carbon emissions. From the data that is publicly available, and I've listed in my final slide a few references to documents that they are publicly available on the internet. It's estimated that the built environment accounts for nearly 39% of the gross annual carbon emissions worldwide. The exact amount, that's always a discussion because it lacks reliable data, but it is estimated that construction of buildings and infrastructure accounts for almost 20% of the global emissions, global carbon emissions. And of this, 11% is associated with building materials in construction. To give you an example, the Global Cement and Concrete Association estimated in 2018, so a couple of years ago, that more than 4 billion tons of cement was used globally, with China being accounting for 52% more or less of the demand. But the production of cement is responsible for 5 to 8% of the global carbon emissions. Similar data published by the World Steel Organization in 2019 shows that more than 900 million tons of crude steel was used in the construction sector, and this accounts for 3.5 to 5% of the global carbon emissions. So what you see is that within the construction industry, we have we account for a lot of the global emissions. In order to limit the global warming, the construction sector needs to reach net zero carbon emissions like any other industry. And it may be clear that reducing carbon emissions requires involvement from all the stakeholders at different levels, from designers to architects, concrete, steel, asphalt manufacturers, transportation companies, construction equipment manufacturers, and construction companies, just to name a few. I think there are way more stakeholders involved, but we all need to work together to make that reduction possible. We all need to commit to contribute and implement actions to reduce the emissions. If we don't work together, we will never achieve this reducing carbon emissions. If we work together and we do our best, then it may be possible to reach that net zero carbon emission by 2050. The date 2050, you will see in a lot of documentation. It's frequently used, and it comes from the Paris Agreement, where they set a target in 2016 to keep global temperature rise below the 2 degrees, and ideally taking enough efforts to limit the increase with 1.5 degrees. To achieve this global emission, carbon emissions must be drastically reduced during the coming decades to reach net zero in 2050. So that's where the 2050 comes from. The main question, and again, I see that around me as well, the main question is, do we all realize the urgency, and do we see the urgency? If I be honest, if I think of 2050, then I think that that's still 27 years ahead. It seems far away. I think many of us, maybe in this call, maybe be retired by that time. But 27 years is not really far away. It sounds further away than it actually is. If we don't act today, if we don't start taking initiatives today, then probably that target of 2050 is impossible to reach, because it's not only degrees to net zero, it's only a combination with more construction going on, more the world population growing. So it's a real challenge. Types of carbon. If you look to the construction industry and you look at the carbon emission in the built environment, then you can roughly divide it in two types. As showed in this picture, we have the embodied carbon, which is estimated from the energy used to extract and transport raw materials to the construction site, as well as the emissions from manufacturing processes. The second type is the operational carbon part. This is the ongoing carbon emission from buildings, just day-to-day use, such as energy consumption, used for cooling of the building, but also to power household appliances, such as your refrigerator, TV, and computer. To scope the topic for this evening, I will only focus on the embodied carbon, because this is where the construction sector can play an important role in being sustainable. Play an important role, but only if you have a clear picture of your carbon sources. And I think that's where we all need to start. You may have seen this picture before, the scope 1 and 3 emissions. Any organization going on a roadmap to zero, to net zero, will need to assess and measure their greenhouse gas emissions, or for that matter, carbon emissions, within these three scopes. So scope 1 are the emissions covered from sources that the organization owns. So this is where your organization has control of it. For example, burning of fuel for your fleet of vehicles. Scope 2 are the indirect emissions. This is the energy that is purchased and used by your organization. For example, electricity to operate equipment. The emissions from the generation of generating the electricity will fall in scope 2. So you use the electricity, but the electricity is produced somewhere else. The energy that is used to produce that electricity falls in scope 2. Scope 3 emissions are not produced by the company itself and not the result of your activities from assets owned by the organization. In this case, you need to think of when you buy, use, and dispose products from suppliers. Some organizations, and then I look specifically at my organization, include business travel in there, employee commuting. This is something that will fall on the scope 3 of the reduction of carbon emissions. Any route you will follow to net zero requires your organization to clearly think and begin with accurate measurements. So based on the scope 1, 2, and 3, you need to set your baseline. You need to determine where you are today. If you don't know where you are today, you will not be able to take appropriate measures to reduce your emissions. So that's all from the perspective that you cannot manage what you don't measure. So tracking sustainable or climate change data, such as electricity, water consumption, paper consumption, during any of the projects, during any of the construction projects, is important, because that gives you the baseline where to start from. That gives you the baseline in opportunities to reduce carbon emissions, and you can track those data. As I mentioned, focus only on the embodied carbon. So how can we reduce this embodied carbon? That's the carbon that's part of the construction phase. Of course, what we need to think of is that prevention is always the best part. We're health and safety professionals. We know that preventing is better than cure. So preventing is avoiding of embodied carbon from the outset and consideration of alternative strategies. For example, renovation instead of existing buildings rather than new development. I know that that's not in our hands, but that's one way that in the construction industry and that in the built environment, we can reduce our embodied carbon, and that's just by refurbishing, renovating existing buildings. Reduce and optimize prevention. So reduce and optimize. Evaluate every design in choice of the upfront carbon reduction and as part of the entire life cycle process. For example, lean construction, end-to-end design, low carbon materials, and I get back to that later in what you already see in development in the industry. Construction processes, or reduce the replace of materials, use local suppliers, get your goods supplied by a local supplier to minimize transportation of materials. Plan for the future. That's literally to avoid future embodied carbon during and at the end of the life. I think a good example at the moment, especially in Europe, heavily discussed, is the wind turbines. They provide clean energy, but the main question is what happens with the blades at the end of their life cycle. The same discussion is at the moment ongoing on solar panels. Solar panels have a huge benefit. They reduce your energy need because they will you will get clean energy from it. But the main question is, what do you do at the end of the life cycle with your solar panels? So that's planned for the future. Construction-wise, clients should think of the potential of renovation instead of demolishing a new build. So it's all about reusing, sharing, leasing, repairing, rather than the continually and traditional way of we take, we make, we consume, and we dispose. The last bit is to compensate for residual emissions. You see this popping up everywhere. For example, at every airline, these days you will have visibility on your carbon emission for your flight, and you can buy that off, so you can offset your flight emissions. They will plant trees for it, they will plant mangroves for it, so you kind of compensate for the carbon footprint of your flight. That doesn't really reduce the carbon emissions, but it's a compensation for what you use. The roadmap to net zero. As I mentioned, offsetting residual embodied carbon emissions will not change the world. Continue to use existing solutions of today will not be sufficient to decarbonize and to reach that net zero target in the construction sector, either tomorrow or in the future. If we really want to reach net zero in the construction industry, we depend on innovation, technical developments, willingness of organizations to make that change, and organizations need to be ready for that change. What you often see, and I think Tesla as brand is a good example. There was a vision, there was a innovation to develop an electric car. They were able to build it. It took time, but if I look on the UAE roads at the moment, then I see a lot of Teslas driving around, and it seems, you know, it created a situation where other car manufacturers also developed or speed up their development in electrical vehicles. So I think it's only one organization that needs to start, and slowly, you know, the innovations will become available for everyone. But if you look at innovations, then I think we need to look at four areas. The main one is alternative construction materials. What you see, and this is typically a development in Scandinavia, in the north of Europe, is where they work on bioconcrete. In Sweden, at the moment, from what I read, there's a project ongoing to grow a bridge using carbon dioxide and lime from the ocean. Is it ready? No. Is it proven? No. But it's an innovative solution where they work on in Sweden. Closer at home, in India, scientists have developed a bioconcrete, which is produced using normal concrete we use in construction, mixed with the special limestone producing bacteria. And this limestone producing bacteria is able to heal itself when cracks develop. And I think that's the way forward if you look to alternative materials. They're not yet widely available. It's not the current standard, but I think if you're open for innovations in this type, then we might be able, you know, to benefit from that, to benefit in the industry. Second one is new industrial processes that could decarbonize manufacturing of construction materials. For example, and that's a new technology as well, hydrogen-based steel making, replacing the traditional fossil fuel steel production process. If this succeeds, then this would completely and revolutionary change the steel making process. And again, it's one of those examples where one company needs to start. And that's all we need. We need to be open for it. Zero emissions on construction sites. We typically use heavy duty equipment, which is largely responsible for the carbon emission on the construction site. Developments in Norway, and I put a picture in the back of the slide, resulted in an electrical excavator with an integrated fast charging interface. So they are available. Do they always provide the same output as a traditional excavator? I don't know. Maybe not at the moment, but it's a development. Again, a development in the right direction to reduce carbon emissions on a construction site. And then lastly, we have the zero emissions transport system. And in that, you need to think of electrified roads, where trucks and buses are continuously charged while moving. But the other option is the hydrogen or fuel cells that have the potential to become a solution for decarbonization of heavy transports. So yes, I agree, there's a long way to go. We're not there. I think we're at the beginning. But if we're open for innovation, if we're open to think out of the box, I strongly believe that we have a real opportunity to make changes within the construction industry. What does that mean for the role of the HSE professional? I think we are quite in a interesting phase. I think there's a very interesting opportunity for us to go above and beyond our current role and support the organization in their journey to net zero. I do believe it's a role with a lot of pioneering, often faced with resistance. I don't say it's an easy one, but we all started in health and safety, and I think we all faced that situation before. It's not easy, but it's challenging, and that's why we are in this role. We all care about our environment, we all care about our employees, we all care about our family. That's what brought us in this role, and I think that's with sustainability as well. It's all about caring about the generations after us. So I think if you look at the years ahead, I think our role as health and safety, environment professional, safety professional will slowly change. I think we will. It's just a matter of time that we get that sustainability behind our designation as well. And I think what makes us good as sustainability ambassadors or leads within the organization is that we already have the core competencies that are required for this role. As I mentioned, I think the HSE role asks for certain capabilities and certain personal characteristics. We're typically passionate about improving our environments, organizations' environment footprint, proactively empower others to get involved with sustainability. That's what we do with health and safety as well. It also asks that besides health and safety, we need to stay abreast of any new developments. So, scroll the internet, read on new developments, make sure that you are aware of what is going on in the world and what is changing within your industry. Be motivated, walk the talk, lead by example. I think a core competence that we all need to have in health and safety. So bits for sustainability as well. Be known and respected in the organization, be able to represent the organization or project, facing clients, facing suppliers, be proactive, friendly, engaging and responsive. And I think being out and about on site, be easy accessible, face-to-face interactions. What I find very interesting whenever I do my walkarounds and not only talk about health and safety, but also about sustainability, is the amount of ideas that are there with our colleagues on the floor. The ideas are there. Often colleagues don't know how to start a project, how to initiate it, how to address their initiative or their ideas, and I think that's where we can play an important role. And then be organized, proactive in running sustainable initiatives. Take that commitment, take that action, put yourself up above the rest, and show willingness to get yourself informed in sustainability. And then I think we can make a real difference for our organizations. As I mentioned, resources and further readings. I've just put a few of the resources I used and I'm familiar with on this slide. So it's the Paris Agreement, as I mentioned. That's the COP21 from 2016. Last year there was an update, Together for Our Planet, the COP26. That was a Glasgow meeting. And then you got World Green Building Council. The excavator I had in my slide is a Suncar electric excavator. It's developed in Sweden. It's sold by Hitachi. But I think that's some of the innovations you definitely could look into. And I would say long live Google and search for innovations in the construction field. I'd now like to open the floor for any questions, if there are any questions.
Yes, we do have one question so far, Branko. So, how to be resilient in construction business after the pandemic hit the world for about 2 years, and in material substitution for cement to reduce global carbon emissions, for instance? Sorry, I didn't read that very well, did I? Would you like me to read it again?
No. I fully understand the question. It's and fully agree. We will come out of the pandemic. Pandemic has been a very difficult time for a lot of companies, and yeah, for a lot of companies, the main focus will be at the moment to improve their revenue over spending a lot of money on new developments, which I clearly understand. It's not that we live in a bubble where we can do anything. So I think construction industry, but a lot of other industries are still in a difficult situation. Having said that, if you look around us, if you look at, for example, pre-pandemic, but if you look at Expo 2020, if you currently look what's happening in Saudi Arabia, whether it's NEOM or the Red Sea development, that's all focused on sustainability. And again, I think we only need a few projects like this that highlights the importance, and then clients will come as well. But it will take time. And again, as I mentioned, 2050 is the target deadline for being net zero. It's 27 years ago. We don't need to change overnight, but we need to make an initial step. And my suggestion would be, as an initial step, is start collecting data. Make sure that for your project, for your organization, you start collecting data on energy, paper, water consumption, that you know where your baseline is. Without a baseline, you can't start anywhere. And the moment we can provide information that we can reduce the electricity bill for the organization, then there will most likely be funds. To give you just an example from my organization, and again, we do a lot of work for oil and gas and construction industry. So I know that it's not always a easy time. At one of our locations, we decided to install solar panels. That was an investment, but our energy bill for that location went down 40%. I think at every construction site, we have car parks. Construction sites are created, they finish, but solar panels on a car park, because we all want to have our cars in a shaded area, is something easily we can start with. It's something where we easily can prove that being sustainable is beneficial as well. But it's step by step, step by step.
Thank you for that, Branko. We just had one more question. Oh, we're getting more and more questions now. So, so the next question is, what are the globally certified courses we should pursue to work in ESG or sustainability reporting apart from GRI?
That's a good question where I don't have a direct answer, because that's what you will see as well there. With this being a hot topic, you will have a lot of organizations, training organizations, that have a course available. But it's in this is as well. It's to find the separate the good from the not so good. I need to have a look into that. Let me take that question and let me agree to get back to you with an answer on our LinkedIn page and via our WhatsApp group within the next week.
Great, thank you, Branko. This is a long question, so I'm usually rubbish at reading long questions. As you have explained the embodied part, I am eager to know about the operational part, because I personally believe sustainability is in operation part can be handled and managed more effectively. Right now, as we are working in construction sector, we can concentrate more on operational part, which we can consider as a baseline study. Also, I would like to know more about sustainability in facilities management sector. That is a huge question.
Yeah, but they're very good. I think, you know, it's the embodied carbon emissions. That's more related to the construction itself. It's about the products used in construction. And this question on the operational part is clearly more related to the building itself. And with that more to the facility management part of it. So this is all about how can we make a building more energy efficient. There's a lot to say about that as well. I would probably be able to run a complete separate presentation on that. Julie, do you have the name of the person asking the question?
Let me just check, because I normally, yes, I do. It's here, yeah.
If you could forward me his name, then I will get back to him in person on this specific topic.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Thanks.
And then we've got a question about what about nuclear energy, basically energy management. Oh, you're getting them this afternoon, Branko.
Well, nuclear energy, that's something you will see in the UAE. I think moving forward with Baraka, I think the UAE will slowly move towards nuclear energy. I think everyone is still a bit undecided if this is clean energy or not. In general, I think the opinion is that nuclear energy in itself is clean energy, but the byproduct of nuclear energy is far from that. So yeah, I still believe that there are a lot of companies that are and governments as well that are still a bit undecided if nuclear energy would be seen as renewable energy and clean energy. As I said, in itself, it is. The byproduct of nuclear energy is far from that. And we need to find a proper solution for that before we, I believe, really can say that it's clean energy. It's the same with the windmills. You know, it's those blades. What do we do with it after their lifespan? Same with solar panels. It's all clean energy, but what do we do after the life cycle with the solar panels? Can we reuse it? Can we actually reuse it in a sustainable way? Question mark.
Great, thank you. And this is the last question. We've got lots of comments about great question, really informative presentation. Thank you again. And one from just say, great session and thanks for answering his question. So the last question is from Mohammed. Everyone is talking about sustainability and I can see your references of UN as well during presentation. I've got two questions. Why there is not enough focus on recycling of sustainability resources like recycling of batteries, especially the batteries used in automobiles industry. Yep. My second question is why UN and other developed nations are not reconsidering their unlimited use of natural resources and not setting limits on their uses.
I think the last one is a bit difficult to answer. I think with everything that is happening, even with the target of 2050, I think we all need to realize that this is all about governments agreeing and negotiating on targets. And I think there's a large political part in that negotiations, which we will never be part of, and we will never know what exactly the reasons for certain decisions are. As for reuse and recycling, I think that's one part, not only in batteries of cars, but that's something where we need to focus more and more. I'm happy to see the initiatives in the UAE, but I think that overall, whether it's UAE or any other part of the world, we can do way more in recycling, in reusing. It's the same with construction, with existing buildings. I think it would be more beneficial to renovate than demolish and build again. I think, and I think we need to be realistic in that as individuals, as professionals, that we can only do as much as we can do. And yeah, I definitely don't have any say in what my company would do in renovating or new builds. I can provide my recommendation, but I'm well aware that I'm not a full decision maker in that, and that I think will be applicable for many of us.
Great, thank you, Branko. Okay, that is the last question. Lots of comments about thank you, very informative session. So as you're the chair of the branch and our speaker today, I'm going to formally thank you for presenting on what is a really interesting topic, and it'll be interesting to see how this develops in the years going forward. I'd like to thank you as the chair of the branch as well for organising this evening's presentation and every other
You're
branch
welcome.
meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for attending and to remind everyone that the recording will be uploaded onto the RRSM YouTube channel in the next day or two, and your attendance certificates will come out automatically this time tomorrow. So I'd like to wish you, Branko, and everyone attending a good evening, and I hope to see you at the next UAE branch webinar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening all.
Good evening.